The golden spiral is a line that grows out from its starting point, curving round and round at an exponential rate. Mathematically, it is always a proportional ratio, no matter how small it is or how big it grows. Because of this, it provides a perfect aesthetic to model artwork after, hence the name, the golden spiral. Before any artwork was done or any math was calculated, however, the golden spiral existed organically, in nature. It can be seen, for example, in shells, in seeds on sunflowers, in various types of leaves, in the formation of galaxies, and even in the human fetus. The golden spiral is something we live with every day, perhaps without even noticing it.
Grimerica.
Although he was paid to be the cloner to make humans, they're called Takadama, Adam and Eve, only to be slaves and snack food, but he snuck a bullet in the furnace there. He wanted to do something more interesting.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. We are going to be chatting with Dan Winter a little bit later about the science of consciousness and crazy tech, all sorts of fun stuff. This is a great chat.
Plasma healing devices and gravity and
all sorts of great stuff. This was a fun one for sure. Saturday afternoon. Well, I guess it was Saturday evening for him. And we got Michael back with us again. Yeah. If you haven't figured out, we recorded both these intros the same night. Anyway, first, as always, Graham Slippery When Wet Dunlop. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, good, buddy. How are you?
Good.
Good. This was a fun one, too. Dan Winter was recommended by a bunch of listeners and a bunch of my personal friends here in Calgary. Give shout out to Stefan and Steven, who both were telling me. Is that the same person? No, two different people. Telling me to have Dan on, and it was great. It was fun, yeah.
I thought maybe there's one guy with a French alter personality.
No. So, yeah, it was a good one. Yeah,
it was a fun one. It's a long one? Was it a long one?
I think it was pretty long, yeah. Maybe an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
I don't know. This will be a pretty long show.
Yeah, welcome back, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
It's like you never left.
I know. Didn't even take my jacket off.
That's right. So, this is pre-recorded, obviously, coming out right after Christmas. Last show of the year.
Yep. We were just talking about social media and stuff and getting off the grid. And sometimes you just want to go meditate and not pay attention to everything.
Especially a week like this, where the world seems to be falling apart.
And here we are considering starting a different type of podcast as well.
Which will plug you in.
That's okay to say that, I think.
To touch on it. But
Michael's given us some fake news about Facebook.
Oh, and they're 50, was it 5,000?
What was it again?
Something like a little under 5,000 satellites.
Why not 5?
It's like 4,700 or something. 4,700 satellites.
Wow.
That'll put Wi-Fi to the planet.
So would that make...
They were supposed to launch the Africa one first, I guess, like 3 months ago or something, and it blew up on takeoff. Yeah.
Who's launching them? SpaceX?
Details, man. You'd have to look it up.
Elon?
You shouldn't believe anything anybody says and go look it up. If you think it's an interesting idea, type it in, right?
But imagine for Facebook to
type it into Bing. Should you type it into Google or Bing? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I consider going to Bing.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. But I mean, imagine if Facebook wants to get the last 2 or 3 billion, besides the people like me that don't actually have them. But just imagine
I think Facebook must be seeing their numbers decline right now.
Wi-Fi all over the planet, and all of a sudden, boom! Imagine the billions of people that would be on it and connected.
I wonder what that'll do to the bees.
What I understand, yeah. It's like up to 500,000 or something drones will be allowed. Like under 500 feet, I think is what it is.
Amazon just delivered a package
between 200 and 500 feet would be, so there will be 500,000 drones
allowed where
across the planet,
everywhere.
And those will all be controlled.
Most of them is going to be Amazon,
and those will be controlled by those Wi-Fi satellites. That's how they will operate.
That's most of them will be Amazon.
That really is like the technocratic future that we're heading towards, really. Eh? I mean,
as fast as possible, they're hoping.
Really?
3 months ago, it blew up on launch. Now they're trying to get just go global with it.
In some ways,
because they need to launch it. The drones are ready.
Do you want that?
They just need the Wi-Fi up there.
Makes it easier for me to go off grid if I have Wi-Fi. Not gonna lie.
Well, then you're not off grid. Unless you're just talking about the electricity grid.
I just want to have my own little nuke out in the back 40, powering my shit. Size of, I don't know, maybe like the size of a little Volkswagen Bug parked in a cave, giving me power and my family for the next couple of 1,000 years.
Yeah.
My own broadband tower so I can do the show.
Really?
Are you going to get
Well, I need something to pay the property tax.
Are you going to get a license from the government to farm?
No, I'm an Indian.
To farm the nuclear energy?
Well, that's the thing. You can't tell them. But something tells me it wouldn't be that hard to sneak a nuke into Canada.
Well, you have a lake right here, so there you got the water to cool it, right?
No, I think nowadays you can I think the tech's pretty far along for those little things.
Do we just go solar and wind and scrap the nuke idea? Like, do you need that much energy, or can you just get by with a little bit of...
No, I could get by with
wind. What are you trying to
sure.
power with a nuclear generator?
Well, solar won't do it. Solar's not going to do it. Maybe wind. I did read something the other day, that new little device, that new little thing that is supposed to be able to power a house. But
that looked interesting.
Around here, too, it's so fucking windy all the time. It would probably work well. Mm-hmm. If you get to where you're selling power back to the grid or something like that. Mm-hmm. Sure, I could do wind with some batteries. But I guess wind never goes out either, right? It's good to have the nuke, though, as a backup. A little backyard nuke, $50,000. $50,000 well spent.
So what's this? Perfect. I don't understand the whole drone thing. Like,
I'll need the nuke to power the replicator.
So that you can replicate your own food instead of killing animals? Is that what you're saying?
Then I could just
kill
the
full nutritious value of the food.
If it worked, sure.
Yeah, like a 3D printer for food, basically.
Oh, they have them. You haven't seen that for like burger places? They have this robot thing where you can order like a gourmet burger. Like you can choose the type of meat and what you want in it and how it's done. And
yeah, but it's not from a molecular level or from a...
They print it, yeah. It's all loaded. It's loaded, yeah, totally.
They just throw in little bits of pork.
I don't know if they're to the point...
Yeah, but I'm saying it's real. It's real meat, though. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about like fake meat.
Where it's
I think they are I'm pretty sure that they're printing meat.
Well, I know they have tried it. I just don't think it's at that scale of, like, I don't think they've figured out
They just ate that burger in Australia or whatever that they grew, right?
Yeah, but they don't have the mouth feel and the bliss point that all the fucking processed food manufacturers have figured out.
And I think, didn't it cost like $80,000, that burger?
Yeah, exactly. That was $250, I think.
So, but I think the replicator is more like Star Trek, where you just fucking go in there and say, give me a fucking A&W cheeseburger from 1952. It's like, bling, here you go, sir.
Totally.
And just give me some fucking Blue Dream with a side of fucking Kush for later.
How did I know you're going to say Kush?
Because everyone says Kush.
Do they?
Everything's Kush nowadays.
Really? I don't know that. How am I supposed to know that? I'm not even involved in that whole thing.
Probably a closet fucking dealer.
Right.
So you're always wearing that green shirt,
so
Mr. Green Thumb.
I want to go back to this drone thing. I don't understand the whole
Amazon just delivered
$500,000. I think it was like 500,000.
Amazon.
But what is this? Is this a regulatory?
Yeah, the FCC approved it.
FCC or FAA?
FAA.
FAA. So we're talking about like saying that globally we're only going to allow 500 million drones to fly under
500,000.
500,000. And I don't understand why. Like how
for
Amazon's going to deliver
drones
parcels
now. Yeah, doing things.
But they're going to limit it because it doesn't make sense that they would do it globally. Like, shouldn't it be limited to like a square mile? Square
probably
kilometer?
That is too. Yeah, it's probably it's all going to be regulated.
There's not going to be a little drone carrying your Amazon package over the Atlantic Ocean, if that's what you mean.
No, I don't mean that at all.
He gets caught in a storm. You just picture it. We can make a movie about this poor little drone that gets lost.
So maybe we'll have Paul Moeller and his flying cars in. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah, that's what he was saying. That was the legislation he was hoping for.
Yeah.
because he said that his car could fall under that same shit. He said if they opened up the airspace to drones, then his car could fly through it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Funny how you remember that. I don't
Except it might be different where the... No, I guess you're not steering the car anyway, right? Are you steering that car? I think it's all auto. I think you can. Plowing through drones.
Yeah. What do you think about this Uber starting to push the envelope on the self-driving cars?
Exactly. That's what they should be doing.
Really?
Totally.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm on board with the self-driving car, too. Like, I think you're always going to have people who are fighting it, but when they perfect it, I mean... I've personally lost family to fucking car accidents. I mean, that's the one thing that's the same as fucking heart attacks and cancer. Everyone knows someone that died in a car accident. If you can make that go away.
Or several.
And not only that, make it so that I can be more productive. You know, imagine if my truck's driving itself around Calgary and I can be firing off emails and shit. I could be doing payroll so I don't have to fucking cram it all into a Monday morning. You know, you can get to the point. Think of what you could do if you could do the show notes just on one day on your way home from work. On your way to and from work.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, that's why I know that's why I would. That's why if I had an opportunity to take transit, I would be more inclined to do that because then I could just chill out and do whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I do enjoy driving, though. That's the thing.
I mean, it sucks to people who have those jobs. That's where I think it gets tricky with. I mean, I know there's a ton of people that are anti-fucking universal basic income and shit like that, but, I mean, when you get to the point that now trucks can drive themselves even.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be, at some point, there's got to be where the people that are using robotics and things like this, you know, at some point, once they've paid off that work, or I don't know how you do it. I mean, it's a slippery slope, and I'm glad I'm not the person who has to figure out how to do it. But, I mean, truck driving's got to be the most popular job on the planet right now, I would guess, or one of them. Every country, everywhere, has people driving trucks with shit on it, delivering stuff. What happens when that stops?
Well, when cars came around, all the people that shoed horses went out of business. All the horses were gone.
But we're getting to a point now where it's different because
jobs left. Like America's already to the point that there's no real, the jobs are disappearing already. Now you can't drive truck, and pretty soon fast food restaurants are going to be automatic. You just go and type some shit in, and it drops. So you know what's going to be left. And that has to be addressed.
Yeah, and the economy is just not working properly.
Maybe it's not about working right now. Maybe it's about meditating.
Sure, but as long as I don't have to pay my fucking rent next month.
No, but that's the problem.
Facebook.
Yeah, but
that's Facebook, one or the other.
I'm fine with either of those, but the problem is that in the current system, all these people are still going to have to pay bills. So I'd love to meditate all day.
0 point.
Sure. I mean, if that happens, sure, I guess now is going to be the time. In the next couple of decades, there's going to be a major fucking shift.
There has to be a shift.
Something's going to have to give.
Because the economy is not sustainable, and it's not. People can't make it by, barely make it by right now.
And everything will be automatic.
It's not getting any better.
No. But like
costs have constantly gone up, and the wages.
I don't want to get too into that here, but I will say I am pro self-driving car.
Yeah.
Well, what if we quit looking at the shit as it falls apart and started collectively imagining what we want it to be? Imagine if you could harness the energy of all the people watching TV right now mindlessly ingesting garbage.
And I mean, isn't it just a matter of being able to harness energy in general? I mean, what if you're riding your bike in the gym? Why can't you just harness that energy? Like, that's part of the major problem. Like, that's one of the breakthroughs that really won't be long from now, and probably one of the most important ones is just being able to store energy, right? Like, you should be able to put any energy into a device. Like, pedal your bike in the gym or like whatever.
Attention is what I was meaning to say.
Yeah, that kind of energy.
Like, from what those people are focusing on currently at this moment, if you could focus it just for an hour towards one thing, if everybody collectively looked towards one thing for an hour, could you imagine what could be created if you believe in that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Whew.
Well, Dan Winter talks about the bliss, the science behind the bliss, right? And that your thoughts and your bliss, that is an energy, right? And if you could harness that, it would change things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe that.
Well, that's what meditation's all about.
It's the law of attraction.
Able to focus your mind so that you can then purify your mind so that you can more effectively use your mind.
Yeah.
That's what meditation should be all about.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Do you have any stories about that?
Oh,
You're going to have some stories for us. But I got some listener emails we can get into for now.
Yeah.
Jingle worthy?
Sure. We got a Lucid Dreaming and a Synchro and whatever you want.
I haven't played the Lucid Dreaming jingle in a while. Where'd it go?
I did find here where the SpaceX rocket.
Oops.
Sorry.
Continue. I can replay it.
Well, it's just where the SpaceX rocket is what blew up, and it was carrying this payload. Facebook was going to bring internet access to remote villages in Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. The operation was involved in French satellite firm EUTELSAT, so Eutelsat Communications.
Interesting.
And that was September, I think it's September.
Can't trust Elon.
Beginning of September.
Oh, was that the one that wasn't the one that got
Is that the one
buzzed
that
by the
like
orb, was it?
Like it got hit
Oh,
by
really?
something?
Like a UFO? That was crazy.
Maybe.
And then Elon started getting all negative against AI, which is interesting.
I didn't know all the conspiracy.
Neither do I, just know that.
Oh.
All right, I suppose that.
That was after, I think.
So can you just so that you don't get in trouble about fake news, can you just say like, okay,
Speculate.
right now
I'm
we're going
speculating.
to everything we say from now, if anybody's listening, might not be true.
Oh, yeah, that's when you just...
Might
yeah,
not
you
be
can
true.
say speculating. And then
Yeah,
you're
for
safe.
sure. I think that's part of the problem is that in the mainstream is nobody's saying their bias or their agenda. Like we are funded by this or this is fucking,
Right.
you know, this. Nobody's telling anybody about that. It's just all pretending to be real, right? So, I mean, I think if we're going to speculate, let's say we're going to speculate.
Like
That's
I'd
right.
say every media outlet would have like a no-go list. Like you can't talk about these subjects.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
of our sponsors, because of whatever.
Yeah. Do you ever think that the mainstream media will talk negatively against prescription drugs? Never, right?
So there needs to be like a no-go list.com where everybody figures out what CNN's no-go list is, what ABC's no-go list is, what Fox News is. You know.
I think you can tell just by the commercials.
Well, of course
that
you
would
can.
help. Well, that would give you a start.
Of course you
for
can,
sure.
but write it all down.
Then you don't
Put
have
it
to
all
watch
on
the
a site.
commercials. That's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Sponsored by. Yeah. And here's who's, who's running the whole
Business
show.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's all out there.
It can be like a flow chart. Like GE is one of the bigger companies in this fucking media conglomerate, and then it's fucking all the General Mills and all these other people, and they're basically
shareholders?
poisoning you to death. And
That's kind of what No Agenda does a little bit sometimes.
yeah, it's like that app. I mean, isn't there those apps already that can give you?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Give you a corporate, an ethical corporate company. Like if you're looking for a product, and they say these guys like treat their people well, they're good for the environment, they're, they're disclosing poison on the bottle or whatever it is.
Yeah, I look that kind of stuff up, like for getting a car seat, for instance. It's not like the most poisonous car seat,
Yeah.
You guys ready to rock
Yeah,
and
let's
roll?
do it.
Is it real or a dream? What does that even mean?
So this is from Max, and I think he's in
Max
contact.
L?
Yeah, I think you're in contact with him a little bit. So I don't know if you've seen this or not.
I see him on the Facebook. from
Oh, he's
time
on
to
the
time.
Facebook. So hey, Graham, I figured out I would relay my first big lucid dream in a while. I've been waiting for a dream of something to share with my favorite podcast. Thanks, Max. I will try to keep this story short, but with the bit of backstory, it might be long. So here we go. This happened Saturday, the 3rd of December. So the backstory. I've had 2 open heart surgeries in my life. First when I was still an infant, the second when I was 12. I had a close call with an ATV accident when I was 17. He put in brackets no EDEs. I think he means no NDEs. Then I got a pacemaker when I was 19. The point being, I've dealt with hospitals for all my life. I woke in my dream to a blinding light. As colors and things settled a bit, I could see what I thought were surgeons and nurses around me. Instinct set in, and I asked where I am. Something told me I was in surgery. I thought it was weird because I've woken up underneath heavy anesthetics. It was when they were taking the tube out. So that my airway was open and I didn't have an oxygen mask on. This was really weird, and I knew this was a dream. At that moment, I saw a scalpel coming down to make an incision. To my horror, it did. I felt warm liquid pour across my chest. There was no pain from this cut as well. I thought the surgeon just used a bunch of Novocaine to numb the area. I did have a surgeon tell me that he was going to do that before one of my surgeries. Anyway, I'm kind of freaking out on the inside. The last thing I remember is something sliding into the incision that was made and thinking the drugs will kick in when you wake up. So he's saying the last thing I remember is something sliding into the incision that was made, and me thinking the drugs will kick in and then you'll wake up. I woke up in my bed and got up, and immediately put it down in my journal. This was the most real dream I've had. I'll have to send over some coin to my favorite podcast as soon as I can. Please continue what you guys are doing. Also, on your 200th episode, a thing that you guys did really right was you got Spotify fast. I think this was a game changer. I also downloaded the show on a whim because your show, I believe, was a recommendation from what I was listening to already, or it was Lucid Dreams. I really don't remember. Max.
Yeah, that's funny. I just used Lucid Dreams as an example for the back catalog.
Yeah.
You know, he was talking about getting a pacemaker. Makes me wonder if that could be like a memory.
What do you mean?
Of his surgery.
Oh,
that lucid dream, they would have cut open his chest for the pacemaker, and I'm assuming. I don't really know enough about it, but that's what popped into my head.
And then it's crazy because he was lucid, and I guess he was too sort of in shock to try and change his environment, right? That's what sometimes when I get lucid, that's what I do. I just go with it. Which is kind of
know you're dreaming?
Yeah, because I kind of don't care. Like, I'm dreaming, I'm having a good time. Like, I don't necessarily need to fly right then. Jesus.
What?
So thanks, Max.
That was a good one. Yeah. What's that picture?
Oh, that's a picture of a synchro.
Ooh, synchro jingle?
Sure.
I'm just going to go with, we haven't done this one in forever.
Synchronicity, it's time for another installment of the Canadian.
It's a little long, this one.
Yeah, you can just slow it down a little bit, yeah. So this is from Rachel. She calls it a synchros and a weird matrixy thing. So, hey, Graham and Darren, love the show. Stumbled upon it a few months ago and glad that I did. I will be donating for sure. Actually, it's kind of cool to figure out how people find the show too. So it's cool if you tell us where you were from and where you found us, how you found us. It's our only marketing.
It's good to know.
It's good to know. It's our only marketing analysis.
Especially if we notice a pattern.
Yeah. So she says, I have some synchros to share with you. Would love your point of view. One is a weird matrixy sort of thing. Not sure if I believe we live in a matrix, though. And the other is a synchro. First, the weird matrixy thing. Oh, this is a bit weird. I had a sudden leak in one of my car tires, so I took it to the local shop to have it repaired. The employee showed me where the nail was in my tire and fixed it with an easy patch. I saw the tire before and after the repair. The fix was in the middle of the tread. It was a simple fix, and I was back on the road in no time. The next morning when I got in my car to go somewhere, I immediately got a warning message on the dashboard that the same tire had very low pressure. So I drove it back to the same gas station to have it checked out. The same employee was there to have fixed it the day before. He took off my tire and asked me if I had gotten a second after he patched it the day before. I'm sure she meant second leak. He showed me a second patch on the side of the tire, which was the cause of the new leak. The only problem is that I never had a second flat tire and never had it patched, and especially on the side of the tire, which is not a safe place to patch a tire. It was not there the day before, and the employee knew this too. He was a little spooked, and so was I. I had to purchase a new tire because the patch was not fixable. I was there the day before when the same employee fixed my tire. The patch was in the center tread, which was still there the next day, but for some odd reason, overnight, a second patch appeared on the same tire, different location, and was patched by itself. The only logical explanation would be that someone stole my car in the middle of the night, got a flat tire, had it patched, and returned it to me before I woke up the next morning, which obviously did not happen.
They scammed you. They gave you a shitty tire.
No. No, they went to fix the leak and they gave her a different tire instead? I don't know.
And the imaginary scenario should be a lot more to it, like knocked over a Jack-in-the-Box, got chased down Broad Street, had a run-in with the locals.
Oh, yeah.
Yokels, the local yokels.
Okay, so here's the synchro. My husband passed away 3 years ago. Oh, you know what? This is the second woman that's been emailing in about new belief system, like NDEs and afterlife after their husbands have passed away.
Oh.
Yeah. Just recently. It's really interesting. And they're just open. Like they probably don't have anybody to talk to about it, right? It's like, hey, my husband passed away and I sort of believe in afterlife now, and there's been some sort of communication or some sort of epiphany or synchronicities or whatever, and they feel like they can share it on the show, so thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my husband passed away 3 years ago from a brain hemorrhage. He was an organ donor and helped 127 people ages 4 to 92. Wow. I didn't realize that was...
He was a hero.
That was so possible. 127 people.
I'm an organ donor too, but something tells me they don't want...
Either don't want your organs?
Do they check them? They must check them.
Yeah, I think they
the lungs are shot. The rest of me's probably in pretty good shape.
Huh. Well, I don't know about that.
Easy.
I have become an ambassador with the local...
Can't all be perfect human specimens there, Mr. Dunlop.
Thanks, buddy. With the local SCA Organ Donation Foundation, so she's become an ambassador with them. I was a guest speaker last month at their annual symposium where I spoke to 1,400 physicians. Wow. That must have been a little nerve-wracking. I parked in a reserved VIP spot right by the front door. The parking lot had over 1,400 cars in it and were all high-end vehicles, Mercedes, BMWs, Teslas. My late husband drove a beat-up white 2000 Toyota Tundra. Nice. You don't see those that often any longer, and especially not in the reserved VIP parking for physicians. All I could see were luxury cars as far as the eye could see. I parked in my VIP reserve spot in front and went inside to speak. When I left, a few hours later, the parking lot was at full capacity as the conference was still continuing all day, and all I could see was luxury cars. But when I walked to my car, an exact replica of Glenn's Toyota Tundra was parked in front of my car. You see the attached picture. My car is the silver VMCC, and the truck in front of my car is the exact year, make, model, and color of my late husband's car. I have many more synchros as it relates to my late husband, Glenn, but this one stood out for sure.
That was a good one.
P.S. I was an atheist when Glenn died and worked my way out of it by study. I am now pretty sure we survived physical death. Not sure how or why or what that means, but I think it's true. Podcasts such as yours have helped me with this.
Cool.
I spent some time as an atheist.
And then there's a Leonard Cohen there's a Leonard Cohen thing here, quote at the bottom. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
Leonard Cohen, is that Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald guy?
I don't know.
I think so, right?
I don't know.
The singer, the Canadian singer-songwriter?
Yeah.
So you had an atheism phase?
Yeah.
When?
I don't know.
Oh.
Everybody has a
I had
questioning
one.
phase, don't they? That's
I had one
just
when I
what
was like 19 or 20. Yeah, before my trip. I think. Before my trip.
Yeah. It's
I'm
part
not
of
going to
finding
rate
yourself.
the synchro, though. Maybe I'll rate it. I'll give it like a 8.9.
Yeah, that's pretty...
That was a great one.
Pretty interesting.
What about synchro? As much as it is just, your mind sees and finds what it's looking for. Her imagining.
No, I don't think so. It's more of a synchro, I think.
I think her pulling
It's not
that,
even... I think it's less of a
into
synchro,
being,
and maybe it's more of a
message?
sign, a message.
That's what... That's because to me, a synchronicity is like 2 or 3 things that like all happen kind of at the same time.
It's less of a coincidence and more of a sign, a little nudge.
Well, it's like a coincidence, but
or it's almost like a support system,
together.
right? Or a good job, or a
like 3 coincidences linked together.
Guardian angel.
Yeah. I think she responded to my response, and she got into more details about that. I'm not sure, but anyways, I don't have it handy here. So
I smelled my grandmother for like a month after she died. Like every day or two, I'd smell her around me because she had this certain cigarette that she smoked and this perfume, this blend of the two.
Yeah.
And even now, like every now and then, I'll like smell that for no reason. I'll be in a place that there's no reason why that smell should be there. Although it could just be memories triggering.
Justin's supposed to write a blog on that about. Smells and paranormal smells phantom smells. Yeah, he's working on one. He's trying to get it out before the end of the year.
Cool.
I got another lucid dream.
I won't play the jingle again.
Sweet.
Okay. This is from Mike B.
Mike B. Checking Mike B. No.
Okay, I haven't read this for a while. So he says, "Hey guys, there's one time I had what I would call a lucid dream. I dreamed that I found myself all of a sudden sitting at a table playing cards with several cowboys in an old Western saloon in the USA, just like in the movies. While sitting there, I thought to myself, this isn't right. I'm not supposed to be here. I must be dreaming. No one at the table was talking, so I said, okay guys, say your lines. That was the wrong thing to say to them. The saloon became totally silent, and everyone there stared at me with killer eyes. I guess they didn't like me saying they weren't real, just actors in my dream. I immediately woke up, and I found that I had done exactly what I was not supposed to do. Get all excited when I realized I was dreaming and get kicked out of the dream. I recall your interview with Robert Wagner where he warned of this happening. And I've not had another lucid dream since this one. If I do have another, I hope to stay calm and my dream will last longer. Feel free to share my experience. Keep up the good work, guys."
The trick is to set your alarm for like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and then like drift off back to sleep.
That's the David Wilcock way, right?
That's the wake back to bed method.
Yeah.
I was just watching that yesterday before David Wilcock narrating some Antarctic.
Oh
yeah?
Seems to be a lot of Antarctica seems to be coming up a lot lately.
Yeah, there's some new crack in some ice shelf.
Is there? I thought it was a pyramid or something.
We might all get flooded.
Flooded?
I don't know. What happens if that cracks?
And it makes a wave?
I'd have
you
to
mean
imagine.
make a wave or melts?
I don't know. There's a crack in the ice, and it was newsworthy that I saw today.
And Calgary will be beachfront.
Maybe. That'd be good.
And get rid of California. That'd be too bad. Where would they make the movies? And the Joe Rogan show?
I don't know.
Man.
I like California.
I've never been there, but I want to go. You know where else I want to go before it fucking goes underwater? Is Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. You should.
Yeah. I'm going to go...
Kauai. Kauai.
What's that?
It's like one of the Western islands.
Oh, no, yeah.
A little more... I don't know.
I want to go for sure to Hawaii.
They filmed Indiana Jones there.
I think I want to go sooner than later. Maybe once the girls are old enough, we'll like save up and do like a Christmas trip or something.
Mm-hmm.
Go surfing. There's like no sharks there either, is there?
Well, yeah, but they're not like there's sharks everywhere, but they're not really a problem.
That's good. Australia, they seem to be a problem. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go any place where sharks are a problem. It's like my childhood fear to get fucking eaten by a fish. Anyway, you got anything else?
Yeah, I got a squatty potty warning.
Uh-oh.
And like I said, there's two things we're getting the most feedback from. Us doing a Flat Earth episode and the squatty potty.
Okay, well, roll.
You've really touched a lot of people, Darren.
Let's keep talking about it.
People still think we get paid by the squatty potty, which we do not.
But there has been a lot. I've heard of like at least 5 or 6 purchases of the squatty potty from listeners.
You should send a letter to
and we ruined some
potty,
people's
man.
Christmases.
Do you know what? I don't think mine's working properly.
Get your first sponsor.
Some people know about their Christmas gifts because it came out last week.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I don't think it's working properly, mine. And I realized today after trying yours that my toilet seat is so high that my squatty potty is not really being effective.
You need a 9-inch?
Maybe that's why you need a 9-inch.
You have a taller toilet.
Yeah.
Or if your legs are like...
My legs go to sleep no matter what.
And your legs are like up to my knees, so...
Yeah.
It's hard to make a short guy squat.
Yeah. So he says...
You might need a 12-inch. You might have to put some books on there, too.
Yeah. Like
That's where you could store your books that you read in the toilet. Perfect.
Hey, Darren and Graham. This is from Ryan. Oh, I know what this is. Okay. I'm slowly but surely catching up on all your old episodes. A couple weeks ago, I heard the one where Darren was shilling for the squatty potty, so I ordered my own from Amazon. It works great, but I have a word of warning. When coming inside from brutally cold days to use it, make sure you give your little partner a good stretch and push him downward. Otherwise, you may pee over the back of your pants.
You got to get your pants. Got to be ankled.
I hate shrinkage. He says. I'll be sending you guys another donation in a few days. Honestly, you guys are probably the best value for entertainment and interesting topics out there. By the way, I think I can safely say I'm the first member of the LOTW posse. Don't say it, Darren. Being a good old boy from Northern Ontario, Darren will know what that acronym stands for. Thanks, Ryan. And I think I know. Lake of the Woods?
Yeah. I'm assuming that's what it is.
That's gotta be what it is.
Yeah. How long have you, when's the date on that email?
Today.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
I knew
Graham
right away.
sent that email for like,
I knew right away.
Putting it into Google, looking at maps.
Lord of the Rings.
Where did he say he was from?
I don't know. He didn't say. Just from, he's a LOTW posse.
Yeah. Northwestern Ontario, biatch.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for the support. That is kind of the premise of the value for value. If you haven't heard us chirp about it enough, that's if you find some value from the show, then head over and grimerica.ca/support and see if you can't give $1 or $2.
Yeah.
The most popular is at $5.50 a month, which turns out to be about $1 an episode.
That really helps.
Yeah,
Because we have a bunch of fixed expenses here and a bunch of variable expenses, and really we have no ads and no other income except for listeners, right?
Yeah, we never want to do paywalls or anything like that. We've taken the vow of poverty, so we we expect we don't expect everyone to support or all the time, but when you can and if you can, check out grimerica.ca/support. And, of course, there's always a ton of different ways you can help with the show without costing you a dime. You just check out Graham's show notes. You can review the show, which helps in tons of ways. Share the show wherever you can, whether that's Facebook, Google, Reddit. I don't know, wherever people share stuff these days. But share the show, tell your friends about the show, and that all helps too. And the easiest way to tell your friends about the show is to just sign them up for the newsletter. And you don't even have that awkward conversation. Grimerica.ca/news.
I would say if you're like listening to this while you're riding the bus, you should just take the headphones out and turn the volume all the way up.
That's right.
And just play it.
Yeah.
Be proud. Be proud.
Wear your Grimerica on your shoulder.
There you go.
Hard on your vest, is that how it goes? Hard on your shoulder, did I fuck that up?
Hard on your vest?
I Bob and Doug'd it.
Yeah, you definitely Bob and Doug'd it. We are in the Great White North.
The Great White North. Well, we just came out of the grips of winter.
Yeah.
It's still winter. Wait till January. It's going to get cold as fuck next month. Oof, I don't want to think about that right now. Looks like it won't be too cold for Christmas.
Speaking of winter.
Dan Winter. Enjoy the chat with Dan Winter, and we hope you had a Merry Christmas.
right. Tonight we're excited to have Dan Winter with us. He comes highly recommended from some local friends and a bunch of our listeners. And he's been researching and studying a bunch of different topics. He's got a really long bio here that I won't get into the details of. We can let him share it, but it's kind of about negantropy, DNA, fractals, golden ratio, sacred geometry, plasma rejuvenation, gravity, like all kinds of crazy stuff. And then throw in some spirituality and some bliss in there as well. So I'll let you get into some of those details, Dan. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to share with your audience. Just briefly, my background was electrical engineering, University of Detroit, and then systems analyst with IBM, graduate work in psychophysiology, and then I was trained in the Gurdjieff sacred gymnastics somewhat famously, did a lot of travel. I became a biofeedback inventor, and I've done a lot of work in psychophysiology, taught physics of consciousness around the world for 20 years, taught in most cities in Europe, America, and Australia, and yeah, we've done a lot of work. And currently we're involved in advanced energy research tech, plasma rejuvenation tech, bioactive field theory, and lots of cool stuff. So, yeah, and the physics has been successful commercially, so we're kind of happy at the moment.
Yeah, that's a great little summary there. What got you interested in all this this sort of the more esoteric stuff?
Well, that's very quick. I guess I was studying psychophysiology in graduate school and looking at the physics of emotion. You know, we were showing Playboy magazine pictures while guys were on the polygraph measuring their GSR, and the rate in which emotion was turned into electricity was faster than transistors. And so the physics of emotion is how we started. In that graduate program with Albert Axe, University of Detroit, we were the first to discriminate fear and anger in pure electrical terms. So the electrical nature of the emotion was the beginning there. And then, of course, I then went to the IBM training school in Chicago, and my teacher there was into Gurdjieff and sacred gymnastic. And then in the Gurdjieff school in West Virginia, I began to have intense bliss and kundalini experiences. And rather than call that insanity, I decided to understand it in terms of electrical terms and, physics of consciousness. Yes, that's my field.
That's fascinating. And that's been a while then, like a couple decades since you've been into that?
Are you making me sound young or old here? I was born at a very early age, and my brother was an only child. So we know. Yes, I was born in the 50s, and I was actually worked with Buckminster Fuller and Arthur Young and Bentoff and a lot of those guys personally.
Wow.
And so I was taught by the best of the generation, actually. I had the best schools. I was very fortunate.
Does the physics of consciousness require consciousness to be physical?
Well, it was a way. In those days, we had physics of consciousness symposia originally with Bill Tiller, Arthur Young, and Bentoff was at MIT, Harvard. We had conferences, and also University of Toronto. Marcel Vogel was with us there. And so physics of consciousness, and I was sort of the whiz kid. I guess you'd call it the Forrest Gump of that generation. And so physics of consciousness was a way of talking about, the nature of consciousness using pretentious physics. I mean, we really wanted to use a rigorous physics. And in the end, today, I believe we have.
Did it take it seems to me like we took a skeptical turn there, though. Like you guys seemed to be open at those levels of university back then, and then it seems like it's opening up again now, but it seems like it was sort of clamped down for a decade or two there.
Yeah, it's true. I think it was sort of the in thing in those days to really be, Bill Tiller, he was material science, Stanford University, and yet his book Conscious Acts of Creation, and he was a good buddy at the time, and so studying consciousness, Fred Wolf was with us for some of them, Ralph Abraham. We had fun with all those guys. And so it was a bit of the in thing, whereas later, you're right, I think it wasn't so fashionable. So, and I had the advantage, very fortunate, because I really had, as an electrical engineering background, to look at these things. And so, when I began to have intense Kundalini symptoms, I understood the electrical, and I was adopted by Bentoff, who wrote the book on it. I worked in his lab with him on the physics of Kundalini, stalking the wild pendulum in Boston.
Wow.
Do you think it's a coincidence that this kind of open idea sharing and research kind of popped up at the same time as the resurgence of psychedelics? Do you think that played any role in opening up these ideas to different people?
I know many people have talked about that, and it's been suggested that opening was in part availability of psychedelics. And that's a two-sided coin, of course, because the upside was that you had some opening in the aura. The downside was that the aura became leaky, and there's all kinds of astral hygiene issues. I remember myself in graduate school. I think we actually tested that. I was having intense sort of Kundalini experience, so I didn't. But I did, one tiny little piece of LSD actually as a kind of a laboratory test, and in fact, understood what that meant, and also how the holes in the aura result as well.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Can you go into how those holes in the aura result?
Well, I mean,
and that would be with psilocybin, and I assume would be the same idea.
The measurement is from Korotkov's GDV. That's where we actually did that work, and I worked with Korotkov in many countries who invented the GDV, gas discharge visualization. Mm-hmm. Now bio-well.eu, and we're using that now with the Theraphi plasma system as well. But he measured the fact that yes, your aura gets more porous with astral hygiene problems like recreational drugs. Now, so we don't, when we say talk to your teenagers and advise them recreational drugs, instead it's make a measurement and see if your aura in fact has got holes in it. And the physics appears to be that the centripetal force has to be self-initiated to retain symmetry.
Wow, I think I also.
So would that mean you would be more susceptible to different things?
Yeah, I'll give you a practical example. I was working with a famous shaman named Robert Archer, who there was a whole bunch of criticism of Drunvalo in those days about astral hygiene. And Robert Archer ran indirectly the Santo Daime Ayahuasca Church in Sedona area. And, he was expert at seeing the entities, but it was also my experience that he was more afraid of them, actually. I say this with honor. But and I think what it was is that, you have penetrated, but if you do not initiate the centripetal force to create the perception to the higher frequencies, which is really what aura clairvoyance is, then unfortunately the symmetry that held your aura together is partially broken.
Does that also?
I'm not saying that all recreational drugs are. I'm sure there's legitimate uses to these things, but ultimately, only the implosion that you yourself can generate takes you through the moment of death.
That also seems to get into some of the other stuff I was listening to of yours, which is like the spin in genetic material and maybe how GMOs break that chain. Is that a similar concept that you're talking about?
Well, it's interesting here. So the central development in our work, fractalfield.com, is clear that we call it phase conjugation by golden ratio to the Planck sphere, which is the nature of the fractal field and the nature of implosion. And we've proven, radioactive gravity. That's all at fractalfield.com. People can see the equations. And that's even very simple. It's simple. Integer exponential golden ratio, phase conjugation times Planck length and time, creates the critical frequencies of hydrogen, photosynthesis, and all the biological variables, your brain waves, Schumann, ADP, photosynthesis, Earth year, Venus year. So all the critical durations are predicted to be phase conjugate implosive. So that makes the 0 point work. Now, which makes anything that becomes negantropic and centripetal uses that. And so it virtually defines both life and gravity. Now, that being said, DNA is in the business of doing broad spectral phase conjugation in order to become centripetal, which is what makes it alive. There's interesting evidence for that. Of course, Raymond Moody's surgeons have proven that the near-death visions are electrically contagious. I asked that people think about what that means.
Shared death experiences?
No, that when somebody is dying on the operating table and suddenly there's a death vision happening, that nearby people get sucked in and all see it together.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
So it's like a weird Wi-Fi signal they give off.
That in other words, the human plasma aura process of successful death is to make a black hole, because that's what takes the memory in the aura plasma and renders it into charge distribution efficiency by imploding it. And that is survival through death. That's how memory goes through death. And DNA, that's the business DNA is in, of creating that implosive charge distribution so you can enter what's called ancestral memory of the collective unconscious at the moment of death, for example. And all of that requires a very specific, electrical hygiene for DNA. And we can understand how DNA does that very specifically, because, all that article's at goldenmean.info/DNA manifesto.
Yeah, Dan, I meant to mention your websites at the beginning, so feel free to throw those out there. And I'll put them in the show notes as well so everybody knows, because there's a whole handful of websites that contain all your research, right?
Yeah, the main index is fractalfield.com and goldenmean.info.
So do you think the aura expands almost like a star does before it dies? Do you think the aura of a dying person somehow expands and anyone that gets caught up in that bubble is a part of it?
Actually, I think the opposite, that centripetal force always precedes centrifugal force, because you had to implode to make the radiance symmetrical enough to be sustainable. So that's why you go through that black hole at the moment of death, quite literally. And the sequence of visions seen by near-death experiences mapped geometrically in great detail, the Heinrich-Kluwe form constants, lattice, cobweb, tunnel, spiral. This is the map people see when they die. And we know exactly electrically why, because that's the DNA braid operations doing implosion, charge implosion. And, so there's a whole bunch of instructions there about how to electrically design hospitals and graveyards to make entry into the collective unconscious even possible, because we know exactly electrically what that is.
So people in graveyards might be stuck in some sort of purgatory if there's electrical interference nearby?
Well, it's more about the physics of what is in fact makes ancestral possible in a burial ground. The Hopis have very great detailed information about that. For example, they almost had a rebellion when the U.S. government tried to put steel pipes in the old Oribe Hopi burial ground, and they're very wise to do that, because they knew exactly that if you break up the conjugate fractal capacitance, then the ancestral memory, and ancestral memory is everything.
I wonder if keep going.
Well, just that's what Karakov showed more about the physics of when he followed the Kogi to where they made phone calls to their ancestors, and he measured the fractality of the air, which we now do with Therify. And Therify plasma is also very good at ushering ghosts onward to their other world. We know why. It's a very good ghost busting tool, and really ghost busting. So the electrical nature that enables a ghost to move on is specifically a fractal field, and that's well defined, well measured, and we know what the symmetry is, and it's essential for the design of immortality, graveyards, and hospitals.
Wow.
Is that like an unwritten rule when you're building a hospital, or most people just ignoring this shit?
The point there would be that almost all Western hospitals are quite literally electrically hell, the definition of hell for the survival of spirit. That's what most modern hospitals are, absolutely.
Probably wouldn't want to be in the igloo after you died either then.
Well, let's do this in very simple electrical engineering terms. So Korotkov is measuring where the Kogis are able to make their ancestor phone calls. He calls it fractality in air. What it means is simply a place where charge is able to be distributed efficiently. That's everything. That is if you want another way of thinking about it, you follow the Kozyrev mirror installer to where he's setting up a new Kozyrev mirror to achieve military-grade replicable telepathy. First, he has to measure the nanoteslas of the magnetic line cross on the Earth to get the site correct. And where the magnetic lines cross correctly, they do what's called phase conjugation. which produces longitudinal EMF, which is the physics of ancestral memory. So basically, you got to join the radio or you're dead, so to speak.
Is that where instinct comes from?
Pardon?
Is that where instinct comes from, ancestral memory?
It was one of my favorite jokes in high school. It was that instinct was a name for your biology teacher is clueless. Clearly, the charge or plasma field of the aura retains an information density, and that is available only under very specific electrical terms. Excuse me one sec. Think of a Aboriginal following a song line or a dreaming track and singing the song to not just feed the energy line, to be fed informationally by it, so that birds and instinct, even for animals, my view would be less electrically available to them if they enter the electrosmog of a city, for example, for the same reason that the voice of God is unavailable in a steel building for the most part.
Geez, we're pretty much in a steel cage here in the recording studio.
We're inside the Faraday cage with all sorts of electronics.
It's probably not the healthiest spot to be. So I probably can't contact like my spirit guides in here, I guess.
Well, we're not saying can't, but we're much more difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the Schumann harmonic series, the actual power spectra, 3, 8, 13, the cascade is a golden ratio harmonic cascade called the phase conjugate negantropic collapse wave. And those exact idealized frequencies are the precise brainwaves frequencies that create peak perception and bliss and phone calls to ancestors. So those harmonics, the weak Schumann harmonic series, is relatively available in a biologic architecture and relatively unavailable in a steel or aluminum building with electrosmog.
Wow.
So it isn't charge isolation that you need, it's perfected charge embedding.
Wow. Oh, geez, I wonder if we should back up a little bit to your discovery of like the phase conjugation and the golden mean, and if you could break that down a little bit so people understand how.
Yeah, thank you. That's kind of the basic science here. So let's see if we can do that very slowly. So first, everyone agrees that the universe has a musical key signature.
Okay.
That's called the Planck length and time. It's a unit of length and a unit of time, 1.61 times 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, into which every wave that physics has ever measured divides evenly. And it's interesting how no matter how many hundred light years you go in any direction, it remains the same. So there's a good democracy there. Everybody knows the musical key. Now, the next thing is we wrote the equations to prove that the golden ratio idealizes constructive wave interference and therefore constructive charge collapse or implosion or fractality or constructive compression. And so if you take, and that's called phase conjugation. Literally, the conjugation of phases is what the golden mean ratio is, adding and multiplying recursively, constructively. So you take the golden mean ratio, integer powers of golden ratio, times the Planck length and time. I wrote new equations to prove that predicts 3 exact radii of hydrogen and the duration of the wavelength of adenosine diphosphate, the universal musical key signature cell metabolism, ADP. It predicts the exact only 2 frequencies that motorize photosynthesis, which literally phase conjugate negantropic. It's called phase conjugate negantropic charge collapse.
Right.
Another life. It also predicts the harmonics of the sacrocranial pump, of the brainwaves of bliss, of the Schumann harmonic series, the duration of the Earth year, the Venus year, the duration of precession, and the duration of the galactic year are almost all exactly predicted by my new equation. So that's how waves get together to implode, collapse. And it is the reason gravity exists, color exists, perception exists, life exists, and consciousness exists. That frequency signature. And applying that frequency signature is exactly what mytherapy.net new plasma tech is, which is successful in 12 countries, biological rejuvenation plasma tech.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a bit. So after summarizing that whole thing, how does bliss and emotion fit into that then?
Beautiful. That's the right question. So I spent 20 years measuring brainwaves in our new Apple iOS app for that, flameinmind.com. And what we found out was that
and let me mention one thing too before the first time I heard about emotions having a different sort of physical nature to them was through the heart math guys. Like we had the heart math guys on a couple years ago. It was fascinating. So that whole global consciousness thing, initiative, and so like only over 5 or 7 years ago was the first I've ever heard of that. So that's why it surprised me that your research had gone so far back.
Right. The Heart Math Institute did not know how to take an EKG or to measure its harmonics until I taught them. And in my definition of coherence is called the Heart Math mistake. And you can read about that at ithrive.com, ithrve.com, ithrive.com. And that app walks circles around Heart Math Institute because their definition of coherence is basically single frequency. And we now know that if your HRV is making a single frequency, it means your immune system is toast. That's called the Heart Math mistake. Whereas instead, we measure coherence with what's called harmonic inclusiveness, which basically is fractality in the heart, which is the opposite of the Heart Math definition of coherence. And that was originally developed by Irving Dardick, famously in his book Making Waves, where he showed that Olympic athletes were having record numbers of heart attacks by getting single frequency in their heart. Whereas if they got harmonic inclusiveness in the heart, which defines viability, not just in the heart, but in any living thing, the lifespan is predicted by harmonic inclusiveness, which is equivalent to fractality. So to measure harmonic inclusiveness, I'm credited in the literature with inventing the word heart coherence because I developed the mathematics to do that, which is a second and third order power spectrum called perception. So there's a lot to that story.
Yeah, okay.
But the point is that, yes, we do have a lot of background in the measurement of heart coherence. So we were
at how bliss and emotion fit into your
Yes, thank you. So what we showed was that the ability to have bliss or peak perception was measurable consistently by measuring golden ratio in the brainwaves. Actually, that was pioneered with Dr. Korotkov, who showed that children who were able to see without their eyes got golden ratio in their EEG, for alpha to beta frequency ratio. And so I developed my first invention to do that. It was called the Bliss Tuner, and now it's called flameinmind.com, and you can read about it there. That will join our iThrive suite of apps, and we'll actually be able to show the 0 point in the sacrocranial pump and the heart rate variability actually phase lock with the EEG all in one app. It's going to be so gorgeous. We got three apps on the App Store now. There will be 5 when we're done. And so basically, you teach people to make golden ratio in their brainwaves. The new information, and that was, the golden ratio in the EEG was what Korotkov pioneered and we developed, and then even the mind mirror people got that indirectly, even though they didn't know it was golden ratio, but their graphics showed they were doing that. But what no one knew was that, and this was our discovery, and I credit my partner Bill Donovan for this too, that the right hemisphere has to be 180 degrees out of phase to the left hemisphere, exactly like the plasma tubes in the verify.net. And so what's happening is the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere are a golden ratio caduceus, like literally pine cones kissing noses, but for the pine cones to kiss noses accurately, they have to be 180 degrees out of phase, and that's called phase conjugation, and that makes the screw at the center implode, and that's how phase conjugate mirrors work, and it's pretty cool, because you can literally teach and measure bliss experience. And a large number of people using the Therify.net have bliss and euphoria experiences.
Wow.
Like self-induced, like you can give yourself a bliss experience, Or they're more off. You're more liable to have them in your everyday life.
If you're able to relax and you're relatively well nourished, and actually more women than men in the Therify plasma anyway, it's pretty likely you can have bliss and euphoria experiences there. Actually, we achieve spine liquid pump entrainment called a 0 point with Therify, and that's measured with iThrive.com, but also brainwave entrainment. Remember, the spine liquid low frequencies of physics of Kundalini are exactly the frequencies we're feeding the plasma in the Therify, and exactly the brainwave harmonics or bliss, the alpha beta golden ratio series, is exactly the frequencies that are pumped into Therify. So the Therify is helping do that field for you. Now, I'm not saying that technology is the way to accomplish this. I'm saying this is a mirror to learn how to do it inside yourself.
Yeah.
The Therify plasma lights a beautiful tornado, and by the way, it triggers clairvoyance magnificently. We know why, but always it's someone that needs to steer the tornado.
Well, let's get into the Therify then, because that's definitely something that was of interest to me. Learning about all your work, and I've seen interviews with you with people in other continents working with this device. And it's provided some pain reduction, some healing potential for sure, like physically and otherwise. Let's talk about how that's working then, and then where, and if there's any around here that I can try in Calgary.
Yes, we have a private center there in Calgary, and Paul, our major lab, is just halfway to Vancouver, Kelowna. So many choices. We can make referrals for you guys there. Yes. Well, the website is therify.net, and there you'll also see that we're in over 12 countries with centers there already. Very successful. It's based on technology that was famous here in France called Priori, Priore. And in which the French government documented thousands of cancers were healed. Unfortunately, no one knew the physics, and so it kind of fell apart. But then when I wrote the new equation, which is on the cover of my book at fractalfield.com, and saw that was the actual frequencies they were using, the background is that, people waltzing into Tesla's lab and in the high-frequency sparks were always getting healed. And so then Lakosky picked up on that. And he was using golden ratio in a spark series. And then Priori built very expensive devices based on that. So Lakosky and Priori and Tesla and Rife, they all use the same harmonic series. And by trial and error. But then I wrote an equation to predict what those frequencies were and which ones were best. And so then I knew the physics of the principle behind it, which none of those people I mentioned had a clue what phase conjugation is, and that's the only way to understand the principle. So it was at that moment that we decided to build it, which is now called Therify.net. And basically, the more broad spectral the phase conjugation, the more negantropic. That's the key physics.
So this is creating a plasma wavelength or a plasma energy that will help sort of entrain your own physical. It'll resonate with you physically, sort of, and.
Yes, you've got two plasma tubes with noble gas under pressure called phase conjugate optics, and then you have a bifilar, precisely phase conjugate 500,000 volt Tesla coil. Dumping a complex harmonic series, starting with the equation on the cover of my book, exactly into the two opposing conjugating broad spectral plasma fields. So you're modulating the optical phase conjugation with precise phase, low frequency phase conjugation. The electronics, in Priori's day, it costs millions, literally multiple millions to build these things. Now, 20,000 or 25, something like that. So we can deal with localized pain typically in 1 or 2 sessions, just a few, almost every time. And long-term and chronic pain, I can't say we can help everyone, but I think most people who have long-term and chronic pain we've been able to help as well, which is amazing. And that typically takes 5 to 10 sessions or something like that, which sessions are typically 3 to 9 minutes each. Once or twice a day is typically, and it accelerates metabolism. it speeds up it's a buzz. And so afterwards, it's typical detox requirements. You need hydration and grounding to process this, because your thoughts will go faster. They literally will. In fact, people report improved decision-making and improved vision very commonly.
But during it, doesn't that slow your thoughts down as well? Like, doesn't it really calm you, but then afterwards you notice an acceleration? Is that how it works?
Well, since the Therify is measurably documented to induce the famous sacrocranial pump, spine liquid pump 0 point, we can use that as a metaphor here. That when the spine liquid pump goes to a 0 point, which is called the healing crisis, the reason it heals is because when the compression waves all converge to create a still point, then they emerge with more coherence and harmonic inclusiveness afterwards. So they're literally more phase discipline afterwards. So by getting that buzz to the still point, all the waves are then persuaded to agree, and what emerges is called phase conjugation, negantropy, is increased order. One way of talking about it.
Sounds
in
like
practical
electric
terms,
mushrooms.
Well, it's an electric thing. It's like the hero in the movie Powder. Is that to inhabit the center of a lightning bolt, you have to get to the place where all the waves agree. And that's another name for Kundalini, basically.
Yeah.
Can you kill like cancer cells or anything with this sort of technology?
Well, the original Prairie device was famous for healing cancer, and we have literally dozens of documented stories with Therify of helping people with cancer, but I don't think we can help everyone. And we are very clear, Therify.net, you read the legal section, we make no medical claims at all, and we definitely are working with and encourage working with doctors and medical professionals. We're not bypassing the medical profession by any means. And also many of the cases of serious cancers that we have been able to help, and there are a lot, this is used in synergy with other things, notably Therify plasma-treated water used with the Therify is very effective. Also, Therify plasma-treated hemp oil is very effective in synergy with, also, of course, alkaline diet and some other things. But we also believe we can create stem cell dedifferentiation. And well documented that we create plant growth.
So how are you working with them? It's great that you're taking all this anecdotal evidence from people, and you're very open about how you are working towards more rigorous scientific studies. But is there can you explain some of the ways you're doing that? Or?
Well, anybody that wants to set up a Therify center, we definitely arrange that medical professionals and professional scientists are involved in almost every case. And, you can see at Therify.net and the dozen or more international websites that are linked to that, like the New York site is Therify.tech, the Sydney, Australia site is Therify.com.au, South Africa site, Belgium site, London site's coming, and many. Yeah. But you'll see at each of them that many of the results reports are from medical professionals, famously Dr. Gerald Smith there, who with the New York Center found, measured infrared swelling reduction and, really understands what phase conjugation is. And these people are very systematic about this. Now, supposedly the medical doctors here in France have had dramatic success with leukemia. And we're hoping to maybe have more formal announcements of that as well. But, definitely, we're not making medical claims, and we're trying to do this systematically and very legally. It's not illegal to have a sun lamp that helps circulation and it accelerates metabolism.
Mm-hmm. So you're getting each of those centers to document a lot of cases and
remember, there is such a thing as too much. Because people can get ungrounded. The short-term effect often is better, literally reported, better decision-making skills, better vision. Many people, get younger, feel a snap, crackle, pop. It's very helpful. But hydration and grounding is critical. Literally what is classically called detox is needed because you add spin density, you have to detox the blood, things like that. So.
Yeah, the problem with the decision making thing is it's so subjective, right? It's just it's good when you get those physical healing things, like people that have had chronic pain or they've been in a car accident and they have migraines, and I mean it's important not to just ignore that anecdotal stuff. I mean, my girlfriend had chronic migraines for years, and we heard about this piercing called the Daith piercing. It's like an inner ear kind of piercing, that it was helping people with migraines, and there's, an argument over the internet over whether it's scientifically been studied, and we were like, well, who cares? Let's just try it. And she hasn't had a migraine in a year since she had a piercing in her ear.
Inner pressure. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it did something about the energy, the chi, there's something going through there, and it did something to, release some pressure.
Which is what Kundalini is. I mean, that's what my book shows, that the frequencies of the spine liquid pump and the frequencies of the ringing heard in the inner ear during Kundalini fit my equation for phase conjugation from Bento's work on stalking the wild pendulum, the biomechanics of Kundalini. And so what we know exactly where the ringing in the head comes from, it's a phase conjugation going to completion. So if you finish that implosive process and the flame goes to completion and implodes out the center and then gets to charge distribution, the bliss goes to its completion point. So we know what that mechanism is, and it's teachable and it's measurable. It's not a mystery.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I'll have to put a link in the show notes to that for sure. It's got all the centers in there. And then you said there was one in there. There's a possibility of trying this in Calgary?
The Calgary center.
There's a private one, right?
That's right, but we can make private introductions there.
Okay.
And our major genius of the Therify hardware, Paul, is there in Canada, and we'll introduce you to him. You can see that at therify.net also, and that's halfway to Vancouver. And also there's a new Therify center just going in Vancouver as well. Right
on. Yeah, it sounds great. So I don't want to switch gears too far over here, but you also talk a lot about our evolution and the origins of DNA, and there's some stuff in there about the monoatomic gold. I heard you mentioning some really interesting reasons of why this gold can produce certain effects in the body. But you're also sort of warning against just these external ways of getting to a bliss point, right?
Right. Well, there's a dozen of our articles on gold powder at goldenmean.info/gold powder. But the article about how the monoatomic materials make phase conjugation in a fractal field and therefore cold plasma is at fractalfield.com/cold plasma. And it kind of starts with my days working with Bucky Fuller, where, I learned the jitterbug, which is now called phase conjugate collapse, icosahedron octa charge collapse, which is how Buckminster fullerene phase conjugates. And although Buckminster fullerene hadn't been invented when Bucky taught me that personally. The point is, Buckminster fullerene is an example of a phase conjugate material. It's monoatomic carbon in a certain way. Well, it's stellated carbon, let's just say. It's the most studied atomic geometry in all of chemistry, probably. And it makes an implosive still point in the center, which is chemical magic. That's the point. And which introduces the idea of what monoatomic materials are. That basically, if you look at the completed outer valence electron nest of noble gases which phase conjugate and monoatomics which phase conjugate, in every case you find dodeca completed stellation. We have a modeling kit to animate that. It's a goldenmean.info/kit called the Starmother Kit, which I then proved is the radii of hydrogen. And so this creates an electric field which triggers implosive charge collapse, literally makes a 0 point, a mini black hole maker. So monoatomic materials are powerful because they're successfully triggering non-destructive charge collapse. Literally, the definition of the chem in alchemy, or chemistry, which means I will raise a chem, or I will raise a shem unto the Lord. I will make a black hole. The true physics of alchemy, implosive collapse. And that introduces why monoatomics are powerful, and monoatomic gold, for example, can literally trigger charge implosion in the blood. The problem was that the purely chemically derived sources are extremely dangerous, put holes in the aura, and really mess you up. I mean, David Hudson was making a big mess, actually.
So would it be good to experiment with a little bit of that?
Well, David Hudson's purely chemically made gold powder was very dangerous. You put holes in your aura. I think Thoth had a series of articles about how to avoid fractionation of the personality from addiction to gold powder. That's as old as Thoth. But yet, as you evolve to make more and more organically or contextually derived chemical sources of that, for example, the agricultural ormes, the mucilaginous material from the aloe, the manalo. So there's a whole variety of more organically derived sources, even blueberry juice, Uh-huh. And so they're able to trigger that charge collapse with more context without burning holes in your aura. So, I mean, there's a whole history of this stuff. In the ancient times, this was served in a round white wafer, later called Holy Communion, and making it out of white bread is a joke for the church. It's stupid, but actually it was served also in a geometry like a pine cone at Rennes-le-Chateau, and that's how the white gold powder was served. It's the mana, it's the spice.
Huh, interesting. So I did want to. You touched on the doda and the icosahedron shapes as well, and I wanted to ask you about that because I heard you mention that Jodie Foster's craft in Contact was dodecahedron shaped, and I never realized that. But I had a UFO sighting in Israel in 1990, and the only close description to the shape of this thing was either a dodecahedron or an icosahedron, depending on. It's because it was moving and it was split in half and the halves were rotating against themselves, but it was definitely that kind of shape.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And we have actual photographs of people who see these orbs, the plasma orbs, and you zoom in and you have dodecaecosa.
Right.
And that's a very good insight. I mean, the essential physics is that, if you tilt a tetracube at 32 degrees, the chin angle of the Sphinx, and rotate and blink 5 times, you have a pentagonal dodecahedron. If you stellate the pentagonal dodecahedron, edge length 0.618, and all edges straight out, then you have an icosahedron, and you can do that interdigitated infinitely. And that's what the Star Mother kit is, goldenmean.info/kit. And we now later wrote the equations to prove that's the geometry, literally how hydrogen is built. And that creates, when its phase is scaled precisely to Planck sphere, creates implosive charge collapse, which is the only reason that hydrogen makes gravity. That's the new information. Then it is why an object falls to the ground, something Einstein and NASA never figured out. And because the waves add and multiply their phase velocities and Golden ratio scale to Planck, and the charge accelerates towards center, and that's named the gravity.
Did you catch that one, Darren?
Gravitastic.
That's a tough one. So, but there was a difference. You mentioned a difference between icosahedrons and dodecahedron as far as like our ability to reach a higher state of vibration was through more of an icosa shape as opposed to a dodecahedron.
Well, actually, from the point of view of physics, wave mechanics, group theory, symmetry theory, dodecaecosa have the same symmetry. It's a 5-7 spin symmetry array. So the group theory shows the dodecaecosa are functionally the same in wave mechanics. What is different is the tetracubic. Tetracubic structures have 7 axes of spin symmetry and produce only powers of 2, called the octave, and produce maximum destructive wave interference, which are ideal for charge isolation, hex, cube, tetra, octet. cube. They all have the same electrical function, which is charge isolation. It's not evil, but it's definitely charge isolation. Nature always uses hex structures. The witch puts a hex on you, which is to fix the spell. The opposite of that is the pent symmetry, which is dodeca-icosa, which creates only golden ratio, which creates this constructive wave interference, which then invites charge distribution, which is the opposite.
Right.
That's the functional difference. So the part of your house where you want secrets, is powers of 2, then is octave of cubes, basically. The part of the house where you want sharing, then it should be pent. This is why every living protein is pent. That's the electrical reason.
Wow, that's interesting.
And if you pair that, just to complete the thought, if you pair that of the 7 spins inside tetracubic with the 5 spins outside, and you draw that, you have the anu, which is proven from not just clairvoyance, but in physics, to be the geometry of the heart of the sun, the heart of the human, the heart of hydrogen. 5 spins inside, 7 spins inside, 5 spins outside, and that's the Ophanim sigil of truth, and also the Adawi sigil of the Cherokee.
Huh. Man, I'd love to, if you have time, I'd love to get into how your research led you down the evolutionary path, like the evolution of our DNA and some of that stuff, because it fascinates me. I feel like we're missing something in the evolutionary thing. There's a missing link or something, and I feel like the races, how we evolved, like we're learning more and more about our genetic ancestors and how there's, Denisovian more involved, and how we didn't just come up from Africa the way we thought. And I wondered if you have any thoughts on that.
It reminds me of when we were interviewing Credo Mutwa, and he was explaining why the Zulu name for Kilimanjaro means Enki, and how they had learned to eat a little bit of the grays to achieve a psychedelic. they knew a lot about the ETs down in Zulu country. But how this kind of starts is, look, the science is clear. The only path to immortality is to project plasma aura through death. And we know exactly the electrical physics of that. We know where and when ghosts go after death and why. It's very clear plasma projection physics. So to get there, DNA has to get ready to throw your aura around. And the history of that is, getting a soul is called all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Our ancestors were massaging, playing the genetics of royal families like we do show dogs. And why? So some point there, I decided to study every direct source of extraterrestrial knowledge I could find on the planet. But I mean the direct sources. And I spent a lot of time with these people, Morning Sky, Ghost Wolf, Alex Collier, and Anton Parks has been very helpful now, and many of these people. So I studied sort of the electrical physics of the ET origin of DNA, and all of that information is at fractalfield.com/fusion in the blood. And the short summary is that, Enki, whom we later called Raz, and Abraham, and he was later called Osiris. First of all, he looked like a frog. Every picture of Osiris in Egypt has a green face for that reason. Poseidon, Ichthyo's fish god, and that's why the god is fishy today. But his family, which is called Draco, or Nephilim or Anunnaki from Pleiades, and every indigenous tribe knows they came from Pleiades. The bloodline was called Uru, U-R-U, the ages Uras, and this is the origin of our word Europe and Ural, and Uru, Asa, Elam, Jerusalem, and Hebrew and Nibiru. So the word Uru is very present there, and you need to know what it means. It means ancient Draco dragon blood. That's what it means. And they had a very specific blood chemistry. They're the Anunnaki Nephilim, Draco from Pleiades, Enki's family, and they had a oil-based lipid blood they breathed in nitrogen and out cyanogen, the poisonous dragon's blood. They had carbon bone, silicon nerve, and to them, oxygen is a poison and water is a poison. And we know why from their home planet. It's very clear. And that's the origin of the chemistry of most of kosher. And it's why the flag of Israel, Star of David, is also the shape of the craft of Alpha Draconis. And so their genetic problem is what we put, we were the bullet in that furnace. We're the vaccine in their Orion wars. That's basically what it comes to. Because after a few thousand generations of cloning and Enki's Nudimud, Ra, Osiris's other name Nudimud means the cloner. What happens is the DNA loses vitality, literally ability to phase conjugate, implode, and then you can't take memory through death. So it's losing your soul, literally. And that's Humpty Dumpty's problem. That's the problem that we could be the solution to. And Enki, although he was paid to be the cloner to make humans, they call Takadama, Adam and Eve, only to be slaves and snack food. But he snuck a bullet in the furnace there. He wanted to do something more interesting. and that's why he's called Ra as in Abraham. Because he was actually trying to create potential for ensoulment. And how he did that was when he selected the Cro-Magnon to first do the genetic cross with the Draco nursemaids, basically the monkey he selected was the first in which he had ever seen compassion. And that created a situation where a passion was possible in the Ebi Uru bloodline cross, which had not been seen in the straight, Rh negative. Rh negative simply means the monkey blood is not there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that too, actually.
Yeah, and so it means the passion. We only hug our dogs and horses, and so by introducing the possibility of a passion and compassion, literally coherent emotion. And there was another ingredient. There's some other ingredients there. After originally, blood chemistry was based on chlorophyll only, but after a couple thousand years underground, when the humans reemerged, they were using iron instead of chlorophyll to bond oxygen in blood, called hemoglobin, Bohemians. And so the iron-based blood was a new blood chemistry for them. That's why we were called Adama, as in Takadama, Adam and Eve, which means Adom, red in Hebrew, because of the Scandinavia, the red blood, the iron-based blood. And iron-oxygen bonded blood created a completely different possibility for psychokinesis. So, and therefore plasma projection, ensoulment, all the good things. Because basically, the Nephilim fallen meant they lost ability to take memory through death, lost all long-term memory. That's what fallen means. And so getting a soul is the same as being able to steer a tornado through the speed of light, called make the L as in Elohim. And we now know that's the translation of vorticity, by which phase conjugation creates longitudinal EMF, which is superluminal, goes through the speed of light, and the physics of how you enter ancestral memory, and literally the physics of tracking with your attention longitudinal EMF, which is how you lucid dream, and what the L's, the real L's, can do and what they could not do. And so our potential, our technology is pretty childish, but our potential to actually plasma project in a way with our attention is we're the vaccine in their war. An example, a very practical example of that is 90% of the humans who were abducted by the Greys on the assignment of the Draco were indigenous in part because of the lucid dreaming potential.
Huh. So
it's all just a ride.
So you're saying that the people that were abducted have more potential for astral travel, lucid dreaming, that type of stuff?
Well, the skill to be able to track with your attention the wave front. Basically here, most of our electromagnetics is called transverse, up and down. But when a transverse electromagnetic goes down a spiral on a cone, called translation of vorticity, out the end it comes out longitudinal compressional wave. And longitudinal EMF goes faster than light and can go through just about anything. Mm-hmm. It's the physics of God and DNA radio and mitogenic radiation and the collective unconscious. And to track that wavefront with your attention is precisely what it is to lucid dream, talk to ancestors, and take memory through death. And that's called the El as in Elohim, to make the phase shift. And they had the potential. The ones who had the potential to do that were the only ones who were abducted. What does that tell you? They were trying to get a soul. So
that's fairly interesting. So how about us now in this environment? Like some of the stuff you talked about breaking the chain, the DNA chain, and that sort of inhibiting your ability to reach that collective unconscious or lucid dream. Like, is there stuff that's damaging us now that we should stay away from?
I mean, the short answer is that if you don't get bliss, not only are you toast, but you don't get to win in that scenario. If you do get bliss, then you succeed. Because basically, every time you have a bliss experience, your DNA implodes a little bit more. You get more psychokinetic. You're steering more tornadoes, getting more clairvoyant, and learning to plasma project, doing everything that they forgot how to do. So access to bliss experience is everything. It's the whole message here, which is charge radiance. Call it the quality of grace, charge implosion, lots of names for it. And the hygiene to do that, that's the storal to the mori. And that's the book called Ecstasy and Immortality. Our second book, goldenmean.info/conscious kids, tries to talk about the hygiene, which is basically, you need to live in a place with charge density, the opposite of most modern cities and the opposite of most metal buildings with electrosmog. You need biologic material because of the high dielectric makes charge distribution efficiency possible, which is how you inhabit with mind. It's why in a Waldorf school the kids can only touch biologic material, wood, natural fabric, and stone, and never touch plastic and steel because literally the aura is frozen in places where charge distribution is not possible. You cannot inhabit the field. So that's step one, is begin to charge your aura, and then learn the diet of live food and genetic diversity. Every time you pick anything to eat, you ask, when was the last time your DNA experienced freedom to your broccoli, And then you learn yoga and sacred gymnastics, some form of bliss process. Eventually, where your ears ring and you have kundalini, get some bliss experience, and become charged radiant. And that's the only way to get immortal.
So is there a possibility to get bliss in the city? I mean, I've found moments of that for sure. Like I had a kundalini experience that I just talked about with another guest. And I mean, I get these like shiver states of what I would call momentary bliss. And I live in a city, and I'm, right now I'm in a frickin' Faraday cage with a bunch of electronics.
No, this is great, and I'm exactly the right question, sir. And I admire the fact that you're even recognizing those experiences. Good work. And my suggestion would be that the kinds of bliss experience only become sustainable when you get to environments where implosion, because basically during bliss experience, you're imploding the electric field around you. And if you do that in a steel cage with electrosmog, you're sucking in poison, basically. So bliss will never be sustainable in highly synthetic environments because you're imploding poison. It's the same physics exactly applies to the Therify plasma system. Therify plasma system works great in biologic environments, but you get into electrosmog nasty environments, and the Therify system actually is not as powerful because it literally implodes its field.
That's why grounding and getting to the nature and walking around in bare feet is so important, probably.
Exactly. Precisely. Buy the book Earthing and do the homework, and there you go. You get the flavor. So you can walk in the city for a little bit when you need to do that, but when you really want to charge your aura, look. How many thousands of yogis learned how to live to be hundreds of years old in India, and never one of them did it in a modern building.
Well, that's why I always want to be in the bush when I eat my mushrooms. It's always better to be out in the bush, I find.
Yeah.
When Padmasambhava melted the stone print with his hand, you can see it there with his aura. He did it in a cave. And the same thing when Magdalene's son melted his coffin lid with his knee, called the Platinum of the Holy Grail. You know, they got their aura pretty well charged.
Well, I think the other thing that's affecting us is not just being in the city, but being in this artificial environment, the artificial lighting all day long, artificial lighting at night, in front of our blue lights, in front of our TV screens, like, you know, without being exposed to the elements, the cold and the sun.
Exactly. Whereas the harmonics of the sun actually feed implosion. In fact, you know, we originally said fluorescent lighting measurably kills attention. If you use sunlight in classrooms, you create attention span.
Wow.
Well, we actually have the equations for that now. We're actually building lighting and building buildings that fabricate attention.
Wow. Well, who's doing that?
Bioactivefield.com.
Oh, really? Do you have any suggestions on what I can do to increase my natural light at night? Or sorry, I don't want natural light at night. I want dark at night when I'm going to go to sleep. But is there anything I can do around just day to day to?
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, the place where you sleep is critical for the maintenance of the aura. So, a magnetic line crosspoint it feeds the aura during sleep. So the same way you would cite a labyrinth or a cathedral applies to where you place your bed. The more you have bliss experience, the more you can dowse, and the more you can bend magnetic lines. Mm-hmm. Only love bends the light, therefore only love creates. So the more your DNA is imploding, the more you're bending the magnetic lines. And see, as you weave them, you learn to find the places of power and charge your aura.
You have to have your phone in airplane mode, Graham. That's part of it.
You think so?
I don't
What'd
know.
You say about it?
I said his phone has to be in airplane mode when he sleeps, or is not recharging his aura properly.
Well, you really want to keep the phone out of your aura as much as possible. It's mostly bad news, but yeah. Airplanes are also bad for the aura. Sleeping over water is bad for the aura because the aura wants to go with the water.
Oh, that's interesting.
We have a lot of the suggestions around that, the advanced spiritual science of geobiology at goldenmean.info/geobiology. You can measure the aura collapse when you walk over a water vein. So a good architect actually places the walls over the underground water to keep people from sitting over an underground water vein for similar reasons.
What about water in general? You mentioned the Therify treatment of water, but what other things can you suggest to do with increasing your the quality of your water?
We have theimploder.com, which is I took that equation for hydrogen radii and built a precise called Schauberger's dream water vortex nozzle. And we build water vortex implosion devices for agriculture. Very powerful. Look at the hundreds of documented examples of plant growth, et cetera, there. So we get plant growth from therify.net, but also theimploder.com, which is perfected vortex technology kind of things.
Is that pretty economical for people to get on their own, like the imploder one?
Yes. And in fact, if you just recirculate water through the super imploder there, the imploder.
That's what I saw over there on the imploder. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
When you recirculate through the water through the imploder in like a spa environment, very successful for healing all kinds of issues, like documented the psoriasis solution there in the Norway. You've got two different Norway Therify labs using the super imploder, theimploder.com with the Therify, because the super imploder creates solubility effect, spin density in the water, and solubility is the hydration solution, and therefore a beautiful healing tool as well. Super soluble water in a spa is very healing.
Is that what they talk about when the water is restructured, like you're restructuring the water through the imploder?
Yeah, you could say that, although the term restructuring itself is so vague, it's not very specific. But what you can measure with the super imploder, the imploder.com, is a surface tension effect, a redox effect, and certainly a solubility effect. And the benefit is typically 60% growth improvement by weight in hemp marijuana.
There you go, Darren. That should pique your interest right there.
Well documented.
So
I'm still looking at the imploder.
He thinks. I think he thinks it looks like a penis pump or something like that. Hey, Darren, is that what you're thinking?
Or like a bidet. I was looking at a little bidet that I can attach to my toilet.
Oh, jeez.
It's a vortex, idealized, precise vortex nozzle implosive at one end, and when the water is piezoelectric, you have a charged, spinning water vortex molecule coming out of the vortex, and it enters a super heavy, dense magnetic flux, and that creates extreme reduction of molecular cluster size, added spin density, which is solubility. And that solubility effect is dramatic. It's, of course, wonderful for plants, but for people, everything from back problems to hair color to eye problems are related to hydration and solubility. So hydration solution is related to so many diseases.
Well, I might have to try that. I'm looking for another way to change my water.
It's particularly effective with hard water.
Yeah, we have. Don't we? Isn't that what we have here, Darren? Really hard water?
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's crazy hard. Like in my, what do you call that? Deionizer thing.
The reason it's so good with hard water is because hard water makes the vortex more piezo, and so that makes the capacitive field around the vortex itself. When Victor Schauberger's water vortex spontaneously started to get colder just before it began making electricity from gravity, it's because he added rock powder to make it piezo, like the Steiner biodynamic preparations.
Right.
And we've actually proved that the electric field around the vortex nozzle is itself bioactive. So plants growing next to the nozzle will grow better even if they don't get the water.
So Dan, how have you received the skeptical arguments to all this, or how have you dealt with that community? Like, obviously you're onto a lot of really cool stuff here and talking about, emotion and all this technology centered around it, and you must have been up for some pretty decent attacks by them. Because the mainstream paradigm, we're still stuck in this materialistic paradigm where half the stuff we're talking about here they just won't accept, even if there is evidence.
Well, implosive water technology is a commercial field in which we're successful, and there actually is no criticism.
No, I meant more about some of the more, probably more of the Therify or more of the other, research that you're doing and stuff, right?
The plasma technology, it's amazing. Actually, there's interest. People are actually. The negative. No, certainly I can relate to your question around the extraterrestrial origin stuff. And the ET origin stuff, I do not push that. I just offer it. What my view in general has been that we develop a new physics here, and we don't wait for a generation of physicists to die before they accept it. No, instead what we do is we build something with it. Mm-hmm. And when that's commercially successful, then that's the day when governments and universities come knocking at your door.
Exactly.
And we have been successful, so we're lucky and grateful.
Is there any plans in the future for new things? You've just got this. How long? The Therify hasn't been out very long, has it? A couple of years now.
No, yes, the Therify has been out maybe just over a year, and we're already in over 12 countries and doing great. There's a waiting list for 4 to 5 months.
Oh, wow.
But all of our technologies, you can read the whole list at implosiongroup.com, and there's quite a list. The propulsion technology, the energy technology, the crystal technology. And we have breakthroughs in a bunch of those field cooking where all kinds of good stuff cooking here. It's wonderful. For example, if you take that self-organizing golden spiral on the torus that you look at from the shadows of the tetra, and those shapes are called Hebrew and Sanskrit. If you pump water, particularly if it's piezo or if there's flux density in that spiral on that vortex through it, it's the physics of propulsion, and it's why the Vimana flew, and it's why the Nazi Bell flew. And and we have the equations to optimize. That's all at fractalfield.com/propulsion. And that's only the beginning. If you take the same frequency signature and you pump it in a quartz crystal, Kotsky frost, that quartz crystal cube made 800 times its own weight in gravity. So we definitely intend to replace every form of transportation on the planet. We're just started. And the only reason you even want to bother teaching that stuff is because if you want to steer when you die and lucid dream, that's the physics of the reason Hebrew and Sanskrit exist, because they create a propulsion direction vector. And it's the physics of the Ophanum Enochian ritual as well.
Wow, so lots of stuff on the go.
Oh, yeah.
Big plans.
Well, we coordinate a major international team of engineers, which is growing all the time.
Wow. That sounds great. So is there anything that you want to mention before we start wrapping it up that we might have sort of just glossed over or missed altogether?
Well, we really appreciate people's interest in the technology, and the technology is great as a way to learn the principles here. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful that they're successful. But the real emphasis here, and even in terms of learning the physics of phase conjugate fractalfield.com, is in fact the hygiene. That once you decide that growing your aura is your priority, then your life changes. And that is hygiene. It's the real meaning of spirituality, the real meaning of the quality of grace. And, here's an example. The definition of the term politics comes from the word body polis. A body polis is, for example, a beehive cannot swarm until the collective aura, plasma, collective unconscious, reaches critical mass. And then it is a projectable collective plasma. And that's the point at which they have a body polis. So the biological definition is that the politics does not exist until there is the possibility of collective bliss, because nothing is collectively projectable. And in fact, there is no collective agreement actually possible. Now, once there is collective bliss process, every government on the planet would rather shoot you than allow you to have collective bliss, because, of course, collective bliss, by biologic definition, replaces the need for government. And, it should. So the point is, if you want to have any hope at all, ever, for any kind of independence, you need individual and collective bliss process. Not only is it the only way to get through death successfully and get through the heart of the sun, but it's the only way to have a collectively navigable future. Literally the willed mutation of the species.
Yeah, it goes into to be the change, right?
Exactly. So you prioritize your individual aura growth, your ability to have your own bliss experience, and eventually locate your soul group that learns to lucid dream together. And that's the critical mass that can take you through the heart of the sun, which is the only way to grow up.
That's so weird. Hey, Darren, remember we were listening to there's another guy we were listening to, a political podcast, totally mainstream, but he's a psychologist or something, and his advice was very similar to yours. When the big question is like, what did these people do? He's like, work on yourself, like get it, learn about your history and why you are the way you are, and find your path or your soul. So, I mean, the message is coming from all different areas.
Which means find your own inner still point, and eventually you hear that little ringing inside, and eventually your aura starts to grow and gain leverage. And then you steer tornadoes and control the weather and take your memory through death.
So when I hear the ringing in my ears, what is that telling me? Because the last couple of weeks, I had a couple times where I definitely got that ringing in my ear. Now, you're saying that's part of the Kundalini leakage or something like that?
My partner, Lady, knows which ring in which ear is which ancestor calling, actually. But when Bentoff measured the frequencies of the ringing in the ears heard by meditators, you can see the chart in my book, fractalfield.com. He showed it was the ventricle liquids circulating, which is the climax of the sacrocranial to the Kundalini pump. So we know the physics in great detail. But the reason it's called Sangreal, Song in the Blood, or ancestors calling, is because that's the trigger for the broad spectral phase conjugation, which is the beginning of real bliss process. So that's a good time to go to the still point and find the magnetic line cross point. And, that's where you start to make phone calls to ancestors.
Okay, that's good to know. Right on, Dan. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a wealth of
fun. Yeah.
Wealth of knowledge.
We're really happy to share, and please do invite folks to stay in touch. People can reach me at info@fractalfield.com, and let's all become a shareable wave.
Great, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll link to all this stuff in the show notes, and we'll let you know when this comes out. And thanks a lot. And we'll look forward to trying the Therify for sure.
Great. We'll get those communications and introductions to you. Thanks for caring, and thanks for inviting me.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I wonder if Therify while listening to Theremin is good.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That'll really increase your aura.
That's right.
Or it'll shrink it down in fear.
Big thanks to Dan for staying up late over there in the harsh climates in the south of France.
Yeah, it was great. He's a faster talker than I expected. I watched some of his lectures on YouTube, and he was a little bit more slow on there. But for us, man, he was just
more slow.
Yeah. I really had to pay attention to keep up there. What are you laughing about there?
Nothing. Your English. Your broken English. Yeah, he must be fairly coherent right now.
Yeah, he must have been therifying it up pretty good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, see, it's too bad we didn't have the visuals ready, or we couldn't do that for a guy like this, because he's got just tons of visuals ready to go.
Well, the last video went so well, why not?
Yeah, it just took me like 2 months to get it posted.
Yeah. Anyway, big thanks to Dan for coming on the show. That was a fun one. Maybe we can look at doing video with him sometime in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Check out Grimerica.ca/support for other different options to help us keep having these long, uninterrupted, uncommercial chats. And that's the kind of stuff that might, make it easier for us to do things like video down the road.
Yeah, we got to talk about our donations here in the outro, because people could just skip right through the intro chapter to the interview and never realize that we need donations and we need support to keep going.
We got 2 new subscribers, though. We've almost replaced all the quitters.
No, but you said that they weren't quitters, though. The PayPal problem happened.
Yeah, there could be a PayPal problem, but there's definitely a chance that some people quit. Man overboard. It was bound to happen. But it's a few people have stepped up and taken their place, so it's good to see. I think we got 3 new subscribers in the last week.
Right on. Well, welcome aboard.
Yeah, let's try and get 3 more this week, guys.
Yeah.
Check it out, Grimerica.ca/support. Of course, if you can't help us out financially, you can still do fun stuff like spam Gram with your stories and synchros and such.
Yeah, there's a ton of ways to connect to through Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or the website.
Yeah, rate the show wherever you can, and
iTunes
share
for sure.
the show wherever you can, and tell your friends about the show.
Yeah, and send in like links to videos and potential guests. I mean, honestly, a lot of the guests we've been having on are suggestions from listeners, and a lot of them we had on our radar already, but some of them we definitely kind of kicked us in the ass to go after them a bit quicker.
That's right. So send in your suggestions, sign people up for the newsletter. Just go in the show notes right now and do everything on Graham's list of to-dos. Thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next week.
Somehow I built a rocket ship out of the stuff dreams are made and popsicle sticks. Please look at my rocket ship schematics. Tell me it can fly to the moon. Tell me I'm not a lunatic. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a space cadet. In my hands I have a gas can and matchsticks. Yes, Earth is my home, but I need a vacation from all the sadness, the chaos, and dramatics. I'll let you do the countdown, 3, 2, 1,